At 65, he understood what truly matters in life. There's something profound that happens when you reach a certain age and suddenly look back at all the years behind you. For most people, that moment comes too late. But for one man I know, it came at 65, and what he discovered changed everything for the time he had left. His name was Roberto, though everyone called him Rob. I met him at a community center where he volunteered every Tuesday afternoon, teaching woodworking to anyone who wanted to learn. He had kind eyes, weathered hands, and this way of listening to you that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. When I asked him one day why he seemed so content, so at peace with himself, he smiled and said something I'll never forget. He told me that for the first 65 years of his life, he had been completely wrong about everything that mattered. Rob grew up poor in a small town where ambition meant getting out and making something of yourself. His father worked in a factory, came home exhausted every night, and died at 52 from a heart attack. Rob remembered standing at that funeral, just 17 years old, and making a promise to himself. He would never end up like his father. He would never be poor, never be stuck, never be just another working man who died with nothing to show for his life. So Rob did what ambitious young men do. He worked, he studied, he climbed. He went to university on a scholarship, the first in his family to do so. He graduated with honors, got a good job at an accounting firm, and started making money. Real money. More money than his father had ever seen. And it felt good. It felt like winning. It felt like he was proving something to the world, to his dead father, to everyone who had ever doubted him. By 30, Rob was married to a beautiful woman named Sandra. They had a nice apartment in the city, plans for children, dreams of a bigger house in the suburbs. By 35, those dreams came true. The house, the 2 children, the promotions at work. By 40, he was a partner at the firm. By 45, he had more money than he knew what to do with. He took his family on expensive vacations, bought them everything they wanted, worked 70-hour weeks to maintain the lifestyle they had built. But here's what Rob didn't notice while all this was happening. His children were growing up without him. Oh, he was there physically sometimes, at the dinner table, at the occasional school event. But he wasn't really there. His mind was always at work, always on the next deal, the next client, the next problem to solve. His daughter learned to ride a bike, and he missed it because he was in a meeting. His son played his first baseball game, and Rob arrived in the 7th inning because he couldn't leave the office earlier. Sandra tried to tell him. She said they needed more time together as a family. She said the children missed him. She said she missed him. But Rob thought she just didn't understand the pressure he was under, the responsibility he carried. He was providing for them, wasn't he? Giving them a life of comfort and security? That was love, he thought. That was what being a good husband and father meant. By 50, his marriage was falling apart. Sandra wasn't angry anymore. She was just distant, like she had given up trying to reach him. The children were teenagers now, busy with their own lives, and Rob realized with a shock that he barely knew them. His daughter was dating someone, and he couldn't remember the boy's name. His son wanted to study art instead of business, and Rob had dismissed it without really listening to why. When Sandra asked for a divorce at 52, Rob was genuinely surprised. He thought they were fine. Sure, they weren't as close as they used to be, but that was normal, wasn't it? That was what happened after 20 years of marriage. Everyone said so. But Sandra looked at him with such sadness in her eyes and said something that cut right through him. She said he had spent their entire marriage being absent, choosing work over family, money over love, and she couldn't do it anymore. She wanted to spend whatever years she had left actually living, not just existing next to someone who was never really there. The divorce devastated Rob in ways he didn't expect. Not because he lost Sandra, though that hurt, but because it forced him to look at his life. Really look at it, and he didn't like what he saw. His children barely spoke to him after the divorce. They sided with their mother. and he couldn't blame them. He had a big empty house, a successful career, a healthy bank account, and absolutely nobody to share any of it with. He threw himself into work even harder after that. What else was there? But the satisfaction he used to feel from closing a big deal or making a lot of money had vanished. It all felt hollow, meaningless. He would sit in his expensive house at night, eating takeout food alone, and wonder what the hell he had been doing with his life. Then, at 63, Rob had a health scare. Nothing major in the end, just a false alarm with his heart. But it was enough. Sitting in that hospital waiting for test results, thinking he might die, Rob had a moment of absolute clarity. He realized that if he died right then, his legacy would be what? A successful accounting career? Some money in the bank? A big house nobody visited? His children would come to his funeral out of obligation, not grief. They would divide up his possessions and move on with their lives, barely affected by his passing. That thought terrified him more than death itself. He had spent 45 years working, achieving, accumulating, and for what? He had missed everything that actually mattered while chasing things that didn't matter at all. When the test results came back clear, Rob made a decision. He was 63 years old. If he was lucky, he had maybe 20 years left, maybe less. He wasn't going to waste them the way he had wasted the first 63. He didn't know exactly what to do, but he knew what not to do. He wasn't going to spend another day prioritizing work over people, money over relationships, achievement over connection. The first thing he did was retire. His colleagues thought he was crazy. He was at the peak of his career, making excellent money. Why would he walk away? But Rob didn't try to explain it to them. They wouldn't understand unless they had been where he had been, staring at their own mortality and realizing they had been living all wrong. The second thing he did was reach out to his children. He didn't expect forgiveness. He didn't expect them to suddenly want a relationship with him. But he wrote them letters, long, honest letters where he admitted everything. He admitted that he had been a terrible father, that he had prioritized all the wrong things, that he had missed their childhoods chasing success that meant nothing in the end. He didn't make excuses. He just apologized and told them that if they ever wanted to give him a chance to be a better father, even now he would be there. His daughter responded first. She was cautious, skeptical, but willing to meet for coffee. That first meeting was awkward, full of long silences and careful words. But they kept meeting, week after week, and slowly, painfully, they started to build something new. Not the father-daughter relationship they should have had, that was lost forever, but a different relationship, adult to adult, honest and real. His son took longer, almost a year before he agreed to see Rob. When they finally met, his son was angry, years of resentment pouring out. Rob sat there and took it, every word, because he deserved it. And when his son finally ran out of things to say, Rob simply told him he was right about all of it. He didn't defend himself. He didn't try to justify anything. He just listened and acknowledged and apologized. At 65, Rob started volunteering at the community center. He had always been good with his hands, learned woodworking from his own father in the few good memories he had of childhood. So he started teaching it, giving his time freely, connecting with people in a way he never had during all those years in the corporate world. And something amazing happened. He started to feel alive again, useful, connected. The people he taught were all ages, all backgrounds. Some were teenagers looking for something to do after school. Some were retirees like himself, wanting to learn a new skill. He got to know them, their stories, their struggles, their dreams. He became part of their lives in small but meaningful ways. When one of his students built his first bookshelf, the pride in that young man's eyes meant more to Rob than any promotion or raise he had ever gotten. Rob also started spending time in nature, something he had never done before. He would go hiking on weekends, just walking in the woods, paying attention to the trees, the birds, the changing seasons. He couldn't believe he had spent 65 years barely noticing the natural world. There was so much beauty he had missed, so much peace and perspective to be found in simply being quiet and present in the moment. He downsized from his big empty house to a small apartment. He didn't need the space or the status symbol anymore. He gave away most of his possessions, keeping only what he actually used or truly loved. The rest was just stuff, anchors weighing him down. The freedom he felt after getting rid of it all was unexpected and wonderful. What Rob understood at 65 was something most people never understand at all. Life isn't about achievement or accumulation. It's not about climbing ladders or winning races or proving yourself to anyone. Life is about connection. It's about the people you love and who love you back. It's about the moments of genuine presence, of really being there with someone, fully engaged, fully alive. It's about contribution, about making someone else's life a little better, about leaving the world slightly warmer than you found it. All those years Rob had spent chasing success, he thought he was building something. But he was actually running away from something. He was running away from his father's fate, from poverty, from being ordinary. He was so afraid of ending up with nothing that he missed the fact that nothing is exactly what he was creating. Nothing meaningful, nothing lasting, nothing that would matter when he was gone. The irony is that his father, the man whose fate Rob had spent his whole life trying to avoid, had actually understood what mattered better than Rob did. His father hadn't had much money or success, but he had loved his family. He had been present even when he was tired. He had taught Rob woodworking on weekends, passing down a skill and spending time together. Those few good memories Rob had of his father were worth more than all the money Rob had ever made. At 65, Rob finally understood that the best things in life aren't things at all. They're experiences, relationships, moments, a conversation with your daughter where you both really listen to each other. Teaching someone a skill and watching their confidence grow. A quiet morning watching the sunrise. Laughter shared with friends. The satisfaction of helping someone who needs it. The peace that comes from living according to your values instead of other people's expectations. Rob also understood that it's never too late to change. Yes, he had wasted 65 years. Yes, he had made terrible mistakes and hurt people he loved. Yes, he had missed opportunities that would never come again. But he still had time left, however much that was. And he could choose to spend that time differently. He could choose to be the person he should have been all along. The relationship with his children slowly healed. They would never get back what they lost, but they built something new, something honest and real. His daughter invited him to her wedding, and when Rob walked her down the aisle, he cried because he almost missed this too. He almost spent his whole life so focused on work that he missed every important moment. His son eventually forgave him, really forgave him, and they started meeting regularly for breakfast on Sunday mornings. They didn't talk about much, just life, small things, everyday stuff. But those Sunday mornings became the highlight of Rob's week. Just being with his son, no agenda, no pressure, just two people who cared about each other spending time together. Rob lived to 78. In those 13 years after his realization at 65, he probably lived more fully than in all the 65 years before. He died surrounded by people who loved him. His children, his grandchildren who adored him because he had been present in their lives, the students he had taught who considered him a mentor and friend. At his funeral, person after person stood up and talked about how Rob had impacted their lives, how he had listened to them, helped them, believed in them. His daughter talked about how proud she was that her father had found the courage to change, to admit his mistakes, to become the person he was meant to be. His son talked about those Sunday morning breakfasts and how much they had meant to him. Nobody mentioned his successful accounting career. Nobody talked about how much money he had made or what position he had held, because in the end, none of that mattered. What mattered was the love he had given and received in those last years. What mattered was the lives he had touched, the connections he had made, the person he had finally allowed himself to become. Rob's story teaches us something crucial. You don't have to wait until 65 to understand what truly matters. You don't have to waste most of your life chasing the wrong things before you figure out what the right things are. You can start right now, today, whatever age you are, to prioritize what actually matters. Relationships over achievements, presence over productivity, love over success, connection over accumulation. The tragedy of Rob's life wasn't that he made mistakes. We all make mistakes. The tragedy was how long it took him to realize he was making them. But the beauty of his life was that when he finally understood, he had the courage to change. He didn't make excuses. He didn't say it was too late. He didn't give up. He simply started living differently, and those last 13 years redeemed everything that came before. So ask yourself right now, what really matters to you? Not what you think should matter, not what other people tell you should matter, but what actually, truly matters to you deep down. And then ask yourself if your life reflects those priorities. If it doesn't, what are you waiting for? You don't have forever. None of us do. Every day you spend living according to someone else's values or chasing things that don't actually fulfill you is a day you can never get back. Rob understood this at 65. You can understand it right now. The question is, will you?